All right, now it's time for America's Talking with headlines from across the country, and you can get these headlines in your inbox at thecentersquare.com. And also be sure to check out the information below this video for links to these stories and so much more. We start in Wisconsin, where Congressman and candidate for Wisconsin Governor Tom Tiffany, he said he will end subsidies for data centers in Wisconsin if he was to become governor. He was responding to a video highlighting both proposed increased energy rates and the many tax exemptions for Wisconsin data centers. We Energies is proposing a 14% increase in energy prices over 2 years after multiple energy increases were approved by the Public Service Commission last year. Also in Wisconsin, the governor is vetoing several bills. Tony Evers vetoed a pair of bills Friday that would have exempted overtime pay and cash tips for state income taxes. Assembly Bill 461 would have matched a temporary federal income tax exemption on overtime that would apply to the extra pay received for those working overtime up to $12,500 per year for an individual or $25,000 a year for joint filers. That exemption is targeted at middle-income residents and is phased out for those making an adjusted gross income between $150,000 and $275,000 as an individual, and about double that for joint filers. Another bill, Senate Bill 36, would similarly have created an exemption for up to $25,000 in cash tips from state income tax. In Washington state, the battle over that state's income tax continues. Let's Go Washington suing the Secretary of State there, Steve Hobbs, over his decision to block a public vote on that new state income tax law. Now, the Political Action Committee claims that the Secretary of State misquoted the Constitution in denying their request to allow for the voters to have a say in this matter. The argument centers around an emergency clause in the bill's language that blocks any potential referendum to repeal the tax, which was signed into law by Governor Bob Ferguson after much debate. Let's Go Washington founder Brian Haywood told the Center Square Friday that the rejection letter from Hobbs refusing to process their referendum is the basis for their new legal challenge.
In this particular case, because it says it has to be, this is basically giving the legislature a get out of jail free card to say, sorry, voters, this is something that's so important, you don't get to have a say.
As reported by the Center Square Washington team, Hobbs' office argues that because the legislature declared the act necessary, the support of state governments, they are required by the state constitution to treat it as exempt from referendum. And now down to Arizona, where leaders of the Republican majority there in the Arizona legislature telling residents to file their taxes now, despite uncertainty over tax laws. The Arizona Department of Revenue sent out tax forms to Arizonans, despite the governor's office still determining how Arizona will change its tax laws to conform to the federal law changes that were made last July with the congressional passage of H.R. 1, the so-called One Big Beautiful Bill Act. Now, with the tax filing deadline coming up April 15th, people are nervous because there's a lack of clarity from the governor's office. Tax Conformity Senate President Warren Peterson said. Now, that tax form already being sent out. Over 1 million people have filed. And Peterson, he's keeping an eye on that. We'll update you as that progresses at the Center Square.